Committee meeting to order. It's July 24th, 2018, 9:31 a.m. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of May 31st, 2018 for the Legislative and Rules Committee. Motion put forward by Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. All those in favor? Any suggested changes or discussions on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are accepted. Next item on the agenda, Adirondack Park Local Government Review Board Resolution 3 of 2018 in support of the High Peaks Wilderness Complex and Vanderwalker Mountain Wild Forest Unit Management Plan amendments. I don't know who's here to speak to that.
I can speak to it. I mean, it's the one that the APA Local Government Review Board and all the 5 towns support. It's, a compromise proposal to allow people to get into Vanderwalker and in the High Peaks Wilderness area. It's also been approved, potentially approved by the APA and DEC. And it's to strike a balance between, allowing everyone to get in there and see the natural beauty in that area. So, I mean, we fully supported it at the local government committee, and we're following the leads of the 5 towns that are deeply impacted by this. So I would ask that we support it.
So has the Adirondack Association of Towns and Villages approved it?
I think the AATV has got a similar resolution. This is from the local government, though.
Okay. Supervisor Bramer?
APA approved this at its meeting last week.
Okay. That doesn't always mean that's good, right?
I believe they passed the plan.
The APA?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think they did last week at their meetings.
Well, this is an action item, I guess, in support.
Yeah, it all lines up, like Claudia, it lines up where all the groups are.
My point was that I'm not sure we need to pass this and to encourage APA to pass it because APA
okay,
already
I got you. Well, I just
do we
think
know
it's
that for sure, Supervisor Bramer? I mean, 100...
I don't think it hurts to pass something here in support.
All right, well, any further discussion?
I'll move it forward.
All right, moved forward by Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. All those in favor of showing support for this motion that we just discussed, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, motion passes unanimously. Next, we have discussion items. First item for discussion is the FOIL law, and I believe Supervisor Bramer, you were taking the lead on that. Do you want to carry us a little bit and explain where we are on that, please?
Sure. I did make some changes. About the time that I had finished up making those changes is when our new county administrator came on board. So I think he was still looking at it. I don't want to rush you into doing anything, so I don't think we're ready to talk about it today.
I would request that you and I and Mary sit down, and my profound apologies for not being ready to do that yet.
It kind of fell off my radar.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Yes,
Can
Supervisor McDevitt.
Can someone maybe crystallize or define the problem here? Is there a problem?
I think,
Yes.
Thanks, Chairman. I think there is a problem in that FOIL requests can come into any department head, and it seems they can go to any department head, and the department head can just answer them or not answer them. And then if there's an appeal is when the chairman of the board would find out about it. And I think that there needs to be a more uniform process where FOIL requests get funneled through one place. Maybe they get answered, the research is done by all the department heads, and then the answers get disseminated out through a central FOIL officer, which is what happens in other places. There's a single FOIL officer who's in charge of making sure that the answers are received. But I know it does add work to the county administrator the way I have it set up now, but,
No,
you know,
you're-
our county administrator staff has already been helping this. When you click on the FOIL request thing on our website, I think it goes to Christie.
It does go.
It does.
So she has to kind of deal with it anyway, and I'd just like to streamline the process, maybe formalize it so that if we were to get sued, because there are people who are appealing and claiming that we're withholding things incorrectly, you know, I'm not trying to comment on any specific substance of that, but I think that if we had a better process for making sure we document the steps along the way, we might be able to defend ourselves a little bit better from lawsuits, as well as making it more easy for the public to just send a FOIL request one place and know that the county is going to send it out to all the appropriate department heads to get a response back to them. Rather than if they send it to, you know, DPW, but it really needed to go to somebody else.
If I were a department head within Warren County and I got a FOIL request, it'd go to the county attorney that day, okay? I would say, hey, I don't want to deal with this, I'm going to put it in the hands of council, but anything we can do to ensure that,
I'm open to ideas, I just
Yeah.
think we should try to do something.
I know most of the towns all have one conduit for the FOILs, to come to one conduit, and then it's given to the department head to answer. I mean, I agree if we bring them into one conduit,
Yeah.
and then make sure, I don't know who the responsible party is, if it's legal or the administrator's office, but as long as I think they ought to really come into one area and then designate it out, and then follow the letter of the law. But any of my time, the appeals, you get appeals not just from John Q. Public, but you get appeals that involve people incarcerated too, because they do a lot of that. You get a lot of that stuff where somebody is incarcerated will appeal a decision. So I think it's a good thing. I think it works pretty well right now. I'm not aware of any difficulties, but I would leave it up to Brian and the attorney to come up with a plan.
thank you.
And I'm not opposed to the extra work in our office. We'll have Tammy, and I'm sure that she can play
And I
a role
think
in this
Christie gets
too.
a lot of it
And
now.
Christie does a great job with what she gets now,
Right.
so.
I know she looks at the emails.
Supervisor Wild next.
Mr. Chairman, I was just curious if we have a sense of what the actual cost of the county is to administer all these FOILs that we get. And are the 75 cents per copy?
It depends. It's 25 cents per page, and we are also entitled, if it's an excessive amount of time, we're entitled to charge the individual who submitted the FOIL for staff time. We have to use the lowest paid hourly rate when we do that. So it depends really on the FOIL and how extensive it is, and the redaction process really that's needed in the county attorney's office.
So do we do that very often? Do we charge additional fees?
It's my understanding that we do when we have an extensive FOIL, but I think Mary would be more.
Yeah, I can provide some clarity on this if...
Thank you.
So currently what happens is every request comes in through the county administrator's office. Christie gets every single FOIA request that comes in to the county. She then disseminates it to whatever department head she thinks can answer it best, or if the person that submitted the FOIL says, please send it to a certain department, she does. Then each department gets it and they determine how they want to respond to that request. A lot of departments come to our office for help, but some of them don't. And we only find out about it when there's an appeal. So currently they are all coming in through one avenue and being disseminated by that one person. Our office has just started to charge people because we've gotten such voluminous FOIL requests, basically probably from one or two people, but we can't treat those people differently than everyone else, so now we do charge everybody if we have to redact or if it takes over 2 hours of staff time, because the first 2 hours is always, you can't charge for the first 2 hours. So that's currently how it's done. I can't speak for other departments how they're handling it when they get FOIL requests, but that's currently how it's done.
Thank you, Mary. Supervisor McGowan.
Actually, I think, thank you, Chairman, Supervisor Wild, I was wondering, and I know Ryan and I talked about it earlier, so, I think that's a good practice to charge, because it just seems like it's just going to be getting worse and worse and worse as people change their, want to know more. But I know there are a few that I think take advantage of the foiling too, so.
Yeah, I mean, this is taxpayer money that's paying these salaries, and we have to be cognizant of that.
I agree.
Supervisor Bramer?
Thanks. The taxpayers, though, are also, it's within their right to have the documents that are public documents, and we cannot charge for searching for the documents.
No.
So what are we charging for?
For the redactions.
Redacting and...
We
Of
only
reduction.
charge for the copies that we have to make in order to redact.
Okay, and my other question is, not every single FOIL request is going through the county administrator's office, because people can just FOIL directly. Right now, under our current FOIL, they can go right to a department head and FOIL that person, that department head.
The proper procedure under the FOIL policy is to go through the county website or to send it to the county administrator. I mean, I don't know if people do that, but if departments are answering in any other process, that's not a proper FOIL process. But we also don't hinder FOIL here, so if a department head is answering a direct request, I don't think that's improper either. It's just not the FOIL process.
This says each person can be contacted at his or her office. It does not say you must go to the website and submit a FOIL.
You're right.
I think that has to be cleaned up.
Yeah. So let's sit, Supervisor Bramer and myself and the county attorney will figure this out, if that's acceptable.
Yes, Supervisor Wild?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question. If we make modifications, is this going to be open for a public hearing? So I'd like to, before we move forward, get some public comment on this also.
Today or at the...
No, not today.
All right. Well, we do have some members of the public who are here to speak.
Of course.
I think it's about the backbone. So, is it the consensus of the committee is that we'll let Administrator Moore and Supervisor Bramer do a little smithing on this and then come back to the...
As long as we get it by next month. Let's not let it languish.
All right.
Get it for the next committee meeting,
So we can get it...
then we can get it to the full board for public comment.
Okay? All right. Appears to be fine with everybody if we go that route. Next item then is new and improved. Well, actually, I shouldn't say new. I should say improved municipal opioid cost recovery and public nuisance legislation. And it has been rewritten a little bit, and so County Attorney Cassane, would you help us understand how this has been improved over the other one that we had previously?
Sure. So Supervisor Loeb had come to me and he was concerned about the language in Section 3, which had to do with prescribing narcotics for pain. He was concerned that if a doctor legitimately prescribed the medication, that this law might be at odds with what that doctor is doing. And then if you notice farther into that section, it says that the county can hold them civilly or criminally responsible. So he wanted to make sure we were limiting it to actions that caused opioid addiction. So after reading that section, I saw that it related just to a responsible party. So I went back to Section 2, and responsible party is defined under Section 2. But the only thing that wasn't defined and I thought should be was wrongful conduct. So I added that definition in red to the third page. And that way it limits the conduct to conduct that's related to the opioid epidemic, which causes it to be a public nuisance, which I think is a mouthful, but that way it limits it just to the opioid epidemic and crisis and exactly what we're trying to get reimbursement for.
behalf of the board, Supervisor Bramer.
Which section was it that Supervisor Lowe was concerned about?
Section 3. It says, yeah, so it says the county may recover the cost of governmental functions related to opioids marketed, sold, manufactured, dispensed, and prescribed. He was concerned about the prescribed.
So his concerns have been cleared up because the prescribed's still there.
It is still there. I'm hoping with the extra definition that we have
That will-
limited it to certain conduct.
Supervisor Loeb, comfortable with that?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Any other questions, thoughts, on behalf of the committee? Yes, Supervisor Bramer?
Where are we with the litigation?
They filed the complaint in February, I believe, and now they're doing discovery, which has all been consolidated down in Suffolk County.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Mary,
Supervisor.
wrongful conduct, is that in section 5? Is that?
So,
What?
did it not print in red on everyone?
Oh, it did,
Oh, okay.
I see it there, but you said that it referred,
So, that last word in that first sentence of section 3 limits that activity to a responsible party, and responsible party is defined in section 2. So if you read the definition of a responsible party, it says those otherwise responsible for wrongful conduct. So I thought that by defining wrongful conduct to just include conduct that causes the opioid epidemic or the public nuisance limits it enough to doctors who cause an addiction, not doctors who are legitimately prescribing this medication.
okay. Gotcha, thanks, there it is.
Any other committee member? Supervisor Bramer?
I'm moving forward.
All right.
Hopefully it satisfies Supervisor
Motion to
Lowe.
move it forward, so it'll be a resolution at our next County Board of Supervisors meeting. Second, moving it forward, Supervisor Wild. All those in favor, any further questions or arguments, discussions? All right. All those in favor of moving this forward to the Board of Supervisors meeting for a resolution to be considered by the Board of Supervisors, say aye.
Aye.
Resolution is unanimous, passes. Next item on the discussion. Referral from the Environmental Concerns and Real Property Tax Services Committee request for Legislative and Rules Committee to consider proposed legislation in relation to the banning of plastic bags as proposed by Supervisor Bramer. And so, Supervisor Bramer, I see that you've done additional work on this. Do you want to kind of convey the additional work that's been done on this to the committee?
Sure. And I just want to remind everybody that this is something we've been floating around for over a year and trying to, iron it out and make it something that is going to be responsible for the county and prudent and also help us to encourage the public to use their reusable bags. So the point of this is going to hopefully change people's behavior and get them to start using reusable bags. One of the concerns that we had, one of the supervisors had, was about making sure that we do not unfairly apply this law to only certain stores in the county, because originally we had made the law applicable only to grocery stores. Because at that time we were thinking they're the stores with the most bag usage, plastic bag, single-use plastic bag usage, so that's what we went with. But people were concerned that, some stores that sell grocery items then would be subject to the law, but they also sell other items, like hardware things, that you could get at a different store that then wouldn't be subject to this rule. So the other consideration was that the county board did pass a resolution in support of the governor's proposal, which just applied across the board to all retail stores. There are some exceptions, we can go through that. But in light of the county passing support of that governor's proposal, we since then tried to, we being me and the county administrator and Supervisor Leggett and Supervisor Hogan, tried to mirror the language in the governor's proposal in our law so that if there's a state law ever passed, ours will already be similar to what the governor is proposing now. So hopefully there wouldn't be a lot of change. So what I did was took out the word grocery stores and also took out the definition of a covered store because the covered store was the stores that it was going to apply to. Now that doesn't matter. It's going to be every store except for restaurants, basically. And if you look on page 2 under the single-use carry-out bag definitions, you will see all the different kinds of bags that are exempt from the law. So it's obviously reusable bags, which we want people to use, that's exempt. They're allowed to use those. You're also allowed to use the bags that you would get inside a store just to wrap your meat, fish, or poultry, or things like vegetables, your broccoli you're throwing in a bag, that's okay. You know, if you're putting nuts in a bag, or other bakery goods, let's say, inside the store, you can see the list there. This also does not apply to garment bags, and then you can see that one there, the next one's 7, restaurants, taverns, or other similar food establishments. Does not apply to pharmacy bags. I think that those were the biggest changes. We added a little bit to the legal section at the back, but we still left it. There was some discussion about should we designate someone else to be the person who would be watching out for bag patrol. And the Director of Weights and Measures does still seem like the most appropriate because that department is already, as you know, out in the community going to all of the stores. Many of the stores in our county are already regulated by Weights and Measures, so we have someone there. And with the chairman's permission, there are a few people from the public who would like to speak on this law before we discuss it.
Well,
Or if you want to have
I'd
a
like the committee
discussion.
to discuss it, and I will give them an opportunity or privilege of the floor
Thank you.
shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
All right, so,
Motion?
with discussion at this point. So when I go into the hardware store, and I go back to the nuts, bolts, specialty screws, and they give me the plastic bag that's see-through, and I put 5 bolts, 5 nuts, and 5 washers in there, and so that the person at the register can see the plastic bag and make sure that I've got 5 and not 6, and that's all part of the process. Will that plastic bag be prohibited?
It's actually a heavier bag, believe it or not. I mean, like say at Lowe's or
No
at
plastic
Ace,
bag?
it is a plastic bag. You're right, but it is a heavier bag. There's a certain gauge on these lightweight bags, you know?
Well, are you suggesting, Supervisor McGowan, that we put a gauge to the bags?
No, I don't think so.
No, I believe that something needs to be done with plastics and that, but I'm very concerned of starting it in just our county alone and hoping that the whole state will join in. Actually, the whole country will start rethinking. I mean, I happen to be throwing my recycling bags in my different vehicles now and trying to, you know, break my habit of not walking in the store, you know, without them. Boy, I hate to lose those nuts and bolt bags because, you know, it's nice to have the numbers. But I guess I could throw them all in there and take a picture with my iPhone and walk up and give the numbers, but...
They're not exempt? I thought they were exempt.
Well, I hadn't really thought about, to be honest,
I
screws
mean,
and washers and...
there are a lot of different bags out there that, you know, that's used, and I know those particular bags for the nuts and screws are a heavier gauge than these grocery ones that they have, because they're actually a different material too.
Milliliter, yeah.
You know, it's stronger.
Well, I mean, we could take out the word food, and it could, because the bags for inside the store for holding, like, vegetables,
But
It's comparable in my mind to something that you
Very
would go and
comparable,
hold
yes.
washers inside the store.
And they blow just as well as the other bags, probably even better because they are
But I don't-
even thinner than the grocery bags.
I don't
Supervisor Garrity?
Sorry, I don't think they go, you put them in and they put them inside the throwaway, the single-use plastic bags. I mean, I did receive an email, and I think most of us received an email, concerns about us passing it in Warren County and putting more burden on our merchants. I don't know who, somebody sent it out, and, you know, I said I would listen to the pros and cons of this. I mean, like I said, you know, I have a couple of grocery stores. I have one up there that doesn't use them, and then, of course, we have the bigger ones that do use them, and then some of the ones use a heavier gauge plastic bag, which is exempt. So, you know, I still think they're a nuisance. You know, like I said, I worked for a paper company for all those years, and you know, I think they're a nuisance. It would be nice, though, if the state would help out and do it on a statewide basis. But I did support it, and I still, you know, support your...
Yes, Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I fully support it also, but for a number of years before I went to the big bags, I would bring my single-use bag into the grocery store, and I would get 5 or 6 store visits out of it. Sometimes I'd have to double it up, but I would use that bag until it was torn to shreds and I couldn't use it again. Will a store would be permitted to bag groceries if an individual brings in, call it single-use bag?
Yes, that is under the definition of the bags. Bags brought to the store by the consumer, including plastic and paper bags.
Okay, all right.
Whatever the
I understand.
consumer brings
Okay.
in is fine.
Okay.
Yes, Supervisor McDaniel.
Did you get an answer to your question? You go in and you want to buy
Well-
5 squares, and they give you a little plastic bag, and they kind of write on it, and
Yeah.
you can see it, and the person that's checking out can check out effectively.
I don't know how we would word that, you know, Supervisor McDevitt, right at this point in time. But I talked to Supervisor Bramer last night, and I was talking about instances. See, I'm comfortable with this ban on grocery stores, and I'm used to that. We always bring our bags, our reusable bags, to the grocery stores. But when I go to the hardware store, or the auto parts store, or the landscaping store, I usually don't bring my own bag. So, are we talking about banning plastic bags with them too? And Supervisor Bramer said, yeah. So I'm just, you know, some situations it's easier, I'm more comfortable, and I'm already in a routine of doing it. Other situations, maybe I've got to get in a routine, as Supervisor Bramer told me. So,
Well, not to burden you with the hardware store, okay?
yeah,
I go in and I want to buy 5 nuts and bolts, okay? They give you a little plastic bag that you can see through. The guy that gives you the bolts writes how many. The clerk who checks you out can see, identify, put a code in. We eliminate those bags, okay? How does that hardware store, is this going to be a significant burden on the hardware store?
Can I respond to
Yeah,
that?
please do, yeah,
well,
please do.
Supervisor Wildhead is,
Okay.
You know, I wanted to respond to this and the general content of what we're trying to do, but there's not a lot of spring chickens at this table, except for the young lady next to me, right? I don't know if you guys remember or not, but there was a time when they didn't use plastic bags, they used little paper bags, they dumped it out on the countertop, and they counted everything, and away you went. And if you think about what we're trying to do, it's all about a behavior change, and that's one of the most difficult changes that you ever try to make in any kind of organization or society or whatever. Change is difficult for people. But with our reliance upon the environment what the environment and our natural resources do for us at this county, I think it's imperative that we move forward and take the lead. We've tried to wait for the state to do this. There's lots of reasons for them, maybe why they haven't done it yet. But I think for our specific county, it makes sense to take the lead. I totally support what we're trying to do. I know that if you start writing legislation and you try to carve out individual pieces, you're always going to miss something and you're going to create unintended consequences. So the simpler, the better. We don't necessarily have to be rigorous in our enforcement, but we're stating a policy that we'd like to move forward. And I really think we should do this. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move this motion forward.
Oh, let's,
I'll second it.
well, we're going to have further discussion on it. The motion's been moved to forward this proposed legislation in the form that it is in situ, right? And for a resolution to be considered by the Board of Supervisors at the next Board of Supervisors meeting? Is that what you're saying?
I don't want to preclude any public comment because people are here
Could be
to...
a public hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah, but not even today. But
there are people that wish to speak to this today.
I don't want to preclude that
All right, so you're withholding your motion for right now.
for a few moments. Thank you.
The process would be that we would introduce a local law and schedule a public hearing, and then we wouldn't actually be able to adopt a local law that same month.
I understand. The public is here today, and I always appreciate hearing from the public, so I'd like to not have any statement of mine preclude that.
All right, so in a minute, I am going to offer a privilege of the floor to those who wish to speak to this. Supervisor Driscoll wishes to speak before that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to ask, I mean, certainly if we move this, and I think that we need to, down the road, if we see areas that need to be tweaked, there's a process that we can make amendments and changes as necessary.
Once we have the public hearing, then it can go back for revisions. We would have to bring it back again for a public hearing based on the revisions.
But what about later? Like, say,
After it's in, you would just have to amend the local law.
That requires a public
Supervisor
hearing.
McGowan?
So in that case, I think we really need to address, I mean, are we going for every single plastic bag? Or are we going for grocery stores, Walmarts, Targets, that particular...
Every bag. Except those that are street. Trust me, Brad, we used to be able to deal with paper bags all the time.
No, I understand that, but I mean, we're one county, all right? And I was really hoping to get more from the state in helping and moving this all forward, because I think what we might end up doing is hurting our businesses around here, because people are going to be, the businesses are going to, we're the only ones that are going to have to go out and find bags for everything, paper bags.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Bramer.
Thanks. I mean, there are already these kinds of bans in Vermont. We're not the only one. It's happening. It's starting to happen. It's already happened on the West Coast. And it's not going to be a total switch to only paper. The point is to get people to bring their own bags. Or use a box. People at Aldi's use boxes.
Supervisor Garrity?
I think, we can move this ahead. We are going to get a bunch of public input if it goes to full board. It's not something that's going to happen in July. It may not happen in August. But I think if we don't move it ahead and try to make some headway for the environment, I think we're kidding ourselves. So I'll support it, move it ahead. And we'll tweak whether it's the bulk bag or not the bulk bag.
Yeah, I'll support it also with really
All right.
kind of backing up what you're saying.
There's a process.
Yes.
All right. I would like the members of the public to speak to this, because I told them I'd give them an opportunity to do so. Members of the public who are here to speak to this, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do so. Please state your name at the beginning for the sake of the minutes. Who would like to go first?
Catherine Esserding, resident of Queensbury, and a member of Tri-County New York Transition, who first brought this to the attention of the area. We developed an ordinance and put it forward to Queensbury and Glens Falls, but due to lack of response, it didn't go very far. Supervisor Bramer suggested we bring it to the county, which we did in 2017. We actually presented here in this committee, so this is a bit of deja vu, I guess. I must say, my comments were going to be a bit different because I wasn't sure there was a consensus here that this was a good thing to do. So I'm very encouraged by all the remarks. It really is encouraging. Just a couple of things now that I assume, I'm trusting that we are only talking about the thin film single-use bags. So in stores where they use that thicker, slightly thicker, you know, the thin film are the ones you get at the grocery store when you do your groceries. Anything else, I assume, that's thicker is not part of this law, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I was going to give you all sorts of facts, but I don't need to because you already know that this is a good thing to do. And as regards the April 23rd, Governor Cuomo proposed plastic bag ban, which he wanted it done by January 1st. Many pundits are saying that this is kind of an election year, Earth Day politics kind of thing. So, in my humble opinion, I suggest you don't hold your breath. You all know, you've been around the houses here, and you all know how slow the state can move sometimes. So we'll look at some time before that happens. As regards other possible solutions without a ban or without a fee, however you're going to do it, recycling is not the solution. It just hasn't worked. We've been doing it for 20 years. It just doesn't work. 5 to 15% is only ever recycled. So it's obvious that that's not working. So efforts to get the public to voluntarily bring reusable bags have also been largely unsuccessful. Although, as you know, in the area, Hannaford promotes reusable bags. Price Right and Aldi charge for a plastic bag. BJ's and Sam's Club don't even have them. Target Price Shop with credit for reusable bags. So there's been a lot of activity in this area to try and get people to use reusable bags. And I agree that education is necessary, but it is not to change behavior. And I forget which one said that it's so hard to change behavior, and it certainly is. For 3 years, we, ENYT, went around educating the public. We did all sorts of stuff. We did all sorts of dog and pony shows. We showed films. We petitioned. We actually gave 1,000 signatures to this. I think, well, it might have been the environmental concerns, but to this committee of the environmental concerns. And I hope this did inspire some people. However, as we've seen with recycling, education, all the education in the world has not resulted in widespread voluntary use of reusable bags. It just has not. Folks do not do it on their own, and an incentive has to be required. And you all understand this, I think. This issue may not seem such a big deal given the overwhelming issues of the day, but it is one step that can have a huge impact on people's awareness. That our world's resources are finite, that it is up to us to take care of our planet. There's no planet B. Warren County would be doing its part in reducing the effects of its toxic waste and create a healthier and safer environment for its citizens. As you know, and we've been discussing here, there's many approaches. None are perfect. There isn't a single perfect one, and that's been shown for all 150 municipalities that have done it across the United States, including 10 in the southern part of New York. They all have their pros and cons, but they all have managed to go forward and establish laws that they think are best suited for their residents. And I certainly hope, and I urge Warren County to lead the way in upstate and move forward now to put a single-use plastic bag reduction law into force. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes?
I'm Diane Collins, a resident of Warren County. I have made the behavior change. I bring my carry-out bags to bring my groceries home in. 500 bags, 500 thin film plastic bags per person per year is the statistic we found. That's 10 of those bags amongst all of us every week. So that's how often we rely on these bags just for convenience. You carry those bags out and think about the waste of natural resources and the harm to the environment that they bring in many areas. We don't see it firsthand, but beaches are filled with them, sewers are filled with them. It's just a damage to our world. So I support banning thin-film plastic bags.
Thank you.
Frank Capabianca, the board. I also strongly support this concept and resolution. And many of my points I was going to make have already been mentioned, so I won't repeat them. I'll be quite brief. But two things I did want to mention that haven't been so far. Massachusetts, if you look online, they've done an awful lot of work on this in many communities there. I don't think it's statewide, but I'm certain. But there are many communities. The state right next door to us has been very active in this and passed similar legislation. The second and most important thing, I think, is that what's unique to our county is that so much of our economic activity is based on tourism. And I think that would make this a little special when you compare, should we wait for the state to do this? I think because of our reliance on tourists coming in and having the not seeing bags stuck up in trees and, just general littering, the more pristine area that we can have here and maintain for people coming in that are spending their money on vacation and so forth, I think we're far better off than we will be. And to me, that's a very strong reason for us to be proactive and really pass this before, not necessarily waiting for the state. So, one other quick thing too. I have heard an argument that it's a hardship on people for them to get reusable bags because they have to pay for them. In some cases, of course, you do, but there's a lot of promotional bags that banks, all of our bags that we reuse the markets, we're all free, we got them, and you can reuse them, you just wash them now and then, and they last a long time. So I kind of discount that. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity.
John, thank you. One more.
Briefly, I am in total agreement with the three speakers that have privilege of the floor that have just spoken, and the many supervisors support this potential legislation. And I just think that the public is ready for it. We know from having worked with Price Chopper and many of the stores that many of the upper level managers are really ready for it. If it is a hardship, this is a period of it's going to be worse hardship. I totally now get Al Gore's title and Inconvenient the Truth. It is about inconvenience, and if we can't inconvenience ourselves to make these differences for the future of the environment. And so I'm very happy to hear what they resolved.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Garrity?
Yeah, I'd like to remind everybody, we're stewards of our environment. We were the first ones to do anything about invasive species for Lake George, and we committed a bunch of funds to help clean up the lake long before New York State ever came along, just jumped on the bandwagon and start cleaning up the other lakes. And as a plug for a small donation of $25 to World Wildlife Federation, they will send you bags every month, so you can get all the reusable bags you want for $25. So,
all right.
Helping the
Thank you.
Other public comment anymore?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
I don't enjoy being a contrarian, which apparently I am.
State your name for the record,
But
please.
a few points. On this law, there's
Sir,
opinions that are...
please state your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Timothy Moriarty. I'm a Warren County resident. On the proposed law, there are some opinions. They're based as facts. I was just wondering what the citations were for those as stated under Part 1, example, paragraph 2 and 3. I don't want an answer now, but that's just a point. Also, if you're bringing up issue of plastic bags, what next? The paper cups, plastic cups, where does it stop? And the point is of littering. I understand littering is a problem. Plastic bags, probably a portion of it. But those people who litter plastic bags are also going to be littering everything else too. When we get into the administration of this, I see this as somewhat of an administrative nightmare and also very costly. You're going to have an inspector. Somebody brought up, I think it was Supervisor Bramer, called it the bag patrol. You're going to have a bag patrol, and who's going to be on the bag patrol? They're going to be chief bag patrolman and an assistant, and secretary, and so on and so forth. And are they going to have rules and regulations going into these establishments to oversee how the bags are being administered or not administered? Are they going to have weights, like somebody brought up, weights and measures, or are they going to have something to calculate whether or not the plastic bag is of such a weight? We got into some minutiae here about wondering whether nuts and bolts are covered or not covered. That could go on, indefinitely. Somebody mentioned about tourism, this gentleman over here about tourism. If Warren County is the only county, or one of the two counties in the state, that enact this legislation, isn't that going to confuse tourists who are coming into the area as to, when they come, they're not going to be bringing their tote bags along with them. I think it's going to be an inconvenience and it might tick off some of the tourists. And even if you agree with the merits of this legislation, on a statewide basis, that would be one thing. And yet, on a county basis, independently of other surrounding counties, I think would be a big mistake, and I think it would, cause a lot of concern. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other member of the public? I'm sorry I missed you over there. All right, seeing no member of the public, I did have one suggestion from County Attorney Kassane, that under the Part 2 definitions, under single-use carry-out bag, item 3, that begins plastic bags used by a customer solely to package bulk items, such as, Attorney Kassane was suggesting that we include the words including but not limited to fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains. So it
And then take out the word food.
Yeah, just take out the word food, right?
Prepackaged food items without food.
Yeah.
So you're
If
suggesting...
that makes sense. We can still use the paper bags for the nuts and bolts, but that'll solve that contingent.
We just take out food.
Take out
Yeah.
food. All right, so
You
we
don't
add
buy
the
a lot
words
of that.
including but not limited to, and take out food before the last word of the sentence items.
Yeah.
And so, any other suggestions? County Administrator? Okay. All right. Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a few things on this. We're instituting policy. And from policy comes programs and projects to be able to implement these things. So at this level, this is the broad umbrella that says, thou shalt or shall not do something. But how is it carried out from there? And are we prepared to pass a policy without the full package of how this is totally implemented throughout? I have a habit of overthinking things and not getting everything done that should be done because of it. But on something a lot like this is, do we have the whole package
figured out. Unintended consequences was brought up. Have we really surveyed and seen and prepared for what these unintended consequences could be? Also on cost and benefit. We create a policy here at Board of Supervisors level. What does that mean specifically to the county government itself and its costs, and what will be the increase of cost and benefit to the county? And thirdly, free market. This is a regulatory measure, and sometimes you need to do regulatory measures to get things done. But is there also a free market alternative, or combining a free market alternative with a regulatory for a 1-2 punch to make it more effective? I do support bag bans. I will keep working on my behavior on it, and not forget all my bags in the truck when I go into the store and the like. But there's in our efforts and anxiousness to do something right, I'm wondering if we are at a point where we can really securely say that our actions here will not create these unintended consequences that are detrimental to our cause.
Okay, Supervisor Wild?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. A couple of comments before I make a motion to move this, but as far as tourism and the impact of tourism, I think what we're doing is making an investment. The younger generation that I'm associated with, my kids and their friends, have been lobbying me to support this. I don't think it's an issue with the younger generation coming here for an inconvenience of having to bring their own bags or to somehow identify a bag. In terms of unintended consequences, Supervisor Leggett brought that up. It's a good point. Maybe we can rely on our friends from the press to help bring out more to the public hearings so we can better understand those unintended consequences of this. And from a date of implementation standpoint, I'm worried that January 1 of next year might be a little tight for some of the organizations, our larger organizations, to react to this. Maybe what we do is we say it's January 1, but the enforcement doesn't happen until May or June, or giving people some more time to
Well, then you got inventory, too.
Exactly. So, and with that, I'd like to make a motion to move this forward.
As amended?
As amended. Thank you.
Okay, motion made by Supervisor Wild, seconded by, are you going to second Supervisor Bramer? Seconds it. All those in favor of putting forward Supervisor Bramer's proposed law as amended to the Board of Supervisors for setting a public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any of those opposed, say nay. Resolution passed. Is there anything else to go to the order?
Wow.
Supervisor Driscoll? Yes? All right, motion to adjourn, made by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Wild. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.
Thank you. Good job.